The morning sun streaming through the kitchen window gently illuminated the dining table. As I flipped pancakes, I heard my 8-year-old son Ryan racing down the stairs. "Mom, good morning." With his cheerful voice, Ryan burst into the kitchen. I smiled back at him, smoothing down his messy brown hair. "Good morning, Ryan. Did you sleep well?" "Yeah. I have a math test today. I studied a lot yesterday, so I'm definitely going to get a perfect score." My heart warmed at the sight of my son puffing out his chest with pride. Ryan loved school. He had lots of friends and always talked enthusiastically about his teacher, Miss Michelle. She had a reputation for being young and kind, and when I met her at the parent-teacher conference, she spoke very passionately about the children. My husband Michael appeared in the dining room with a newspaper just as I was plating the pancakes. Dressed in his navy suit, he sat down in his chair with a tired expression. "Dad, good morning. Are you coming home late again today?" At Ryan's innocent question, Michael smiled apologetically. "Yeah, sorry about that. We've got a big project going on lately, so I've been working overtime. But let's play baseball together this weekend, okay?" "Yay!" Ryan shouted happily. As I placed coffee in front of Michael, I noticed the dark circles under his eyes. Sales work must be tough. Recently, it wasn't unusual for him to come home after 10 at night. After finishing breakfast, Ryan stuffed the lunch box I'd prepared into his backpack. A sandwich, an apple, and 2 cookies. The usual contents. "I'm off." While putting on his shoes at the entrance, Ryan turned and waved. Michael and I waved back. When the yellow school bus appeared around the corner, Ryan took off running. Michael left shortly after. His lips brushed lightly against my cheek as I tried to kiss him. It used to be a longer kiss. But he was busy, so it couldn't be helped. That's what I told myself. Alone in the kitchen, I started washing the dishes. I had my part-time job as a medical office clerk at the hospital in the afternoon. 4 days a week, afternoons only, but it helped with the household budget and gave me a sense of staying connected to society. Suddenly, a photo of Ryan caught my eye. One from last month's field trip, stuck on the refrigerator. Looking at my son's beaming smile, I naturally smiled too. Ryan seemed truly happy. He always said he couldn't get enough of school. But lately, something had been bothering me just a little. Ryan's face seemed to have gotten just slightly thinner than before. While I thought it was natural for his build to change during a growth spurt, my mother's intuition was sounding a small alarm. Last week, I casually asked him about it. "Ryan, are you eating your lunch at school properly?" My son looked away for just a moment, but immediately answered with a smile. "Yeah, I'm fine. Your sandwiches are really delicious, Mom." Those words reassured me, and I didn't press further. It was probably just me overthinking things. Michael often said so too. I was a worrier. In the evening, I came home from work and started preparing dinner. Ryan got home a little after 4. While he did his homework and watched his favorite anime on TV, I watched his back from the kitchen. At dinner time, the 3 of us sat around the table. Michael had said at breakfast that he'd be home late again today, but unusually, he was home by 6:30. "How did the test go today?" At my question, Ryan answered proudly. "I think I got everything right. Miss Michelle said I did a great job." "That's wonderful. Miss Michelle really is a good teacher." Michael said this and ruffled Ryan's hair. My son smiled happily. It was a peaceful evening. Just an ordinary scene from a family living in suburban America. Outside the window, streetlights were beginning to come on, and from the neighboring house, the sounds of dinner preparation could be heard. I had no way of knowing then that this peaceful everyday life would soon come crashing down. About a week later, the small anxiety inside me had become something I could no longer ignore. On Monday morning, Ryan didn't touch his pancakes at breakfast. He just poked at them with his fork, breaking them apart, but hardly brought any to his mouth. Ryan, aren't you going to eat? It's not good for you. When I spoke to him, my son looked up apologetically. Sorry, Mom. I'm not really hungry. Are you feeling sick? I hurriedly placed my hand on his forehead, but there was no fever. Ryan shook his head. I'm okay. I'll get hungry by lunchtime at school. I'm looking forward to your lunch, Mom. I wanted to believe those words. But my mother's intuition whispered that something was wrong. Ryan's cheeks had clearly gotten thinner. His face, which used to be round, now looked a bit more angular. During my break at work, I took out my cell phone and called Ryan's homeroom teacher, Miss Michelle. After a few rings, a bright voice answered. Hello, Michelle Harrison speaking. Miss Harrison, this is Emily Collins, Ryan's mother. Do you have a moment? Of course, Mrs. Collins. What's going on? Hesitantly, I talked about Ryan's recent behavior. His lack of appetite, how he seemed to be losing weight, but how he said he enjoyed school. Miss Michelle answered in a gentle voice. I understand your concern. But Ryan is very energetic at school. He plays well with his friends and participates actively in class. As for his appetite, I haven't noticed anything particularly unusual at lunchtime. I see. Is he eating his lunch properly? Yes, he gets his lunch in the cafeteria just like the other children. You might be worrying too much, Mrs. Collins. Children sometimes have fluctuations in their appetite. The teacher's words were persuasive. I felt a little relieved and hung up. I must have been overthinking it after all. Miss Michelle was experienced and watched the children carefully. That's what I told myself. That night, Michael came home after 10. When I reheated his dinner and served it, he sat down in his chair with a tired expression. Another long day. When I said this, Michael smiled weakly. Yeah, I'm really exhausted. The client is being difficult. Ryan was already in bed by this time. I made up my mind to consult with my husband. Michael, I've been concerned about Ryan lately. What is it? Putting down his fork, Michael looked up. I told him about Ryan losing weight and not eating much breakfast anymore. Michael thought for a moment before answering. Emily, you're worrying too much. Ryan's fine, isn't he? He enjoys school and his grades are good. It's natural for his body to change during a growth spurt. But he's fine. You're always like this. I understand worrying as a mother, but you make a big deal out of nothing. You need to trust Ryan. Michael's words were gentle, but there was also a dismissive tone to them. I couldn't say anything more. It's true that I'm a worrier. Before, when Ryan had a cold, I reacted overly dramatically and Michael was exasperated with me. You're right, I'm sorry. I was overthinking it. I said this and changed the subject. But the anxiety remaining deep in my chest didn't disappear. The next day at dinner, that anxiety grew even larger. Ryan barely ate the spaghetti and meatballs I'd made, his favorite dish. Ryan, are you okay? This is your favorite food, isn't it? Yeah, it's delicious, Mom. But I'm full. The spaghetti on his plate had only decreased by a few bites. Ryan's complexion was poor, and there seemed to be faint dark circles under his eyes. Did something happen at school? Is someone bullying you or? At my question, Ryan hurriedly shook his head. No, Mom. School is fun. I play with my friends a lot, and Miss Michelle is nice. Really? Really? Don't worry. Ryan forced a smile, but there was something shadowy about it. That weekend, Michael played baseball with Ryan as promised. I watched the two of them playing catch in the yard from the kitchen window. Ryan was laughing. But his movements seemed slower than before, lacking energy. On Sunday night, after Ryan went to bed, I tried to consult with Michael again. But he was on the sofa with his laptop open, working. "Michael, do you have a minute? I'm busy right now. I have materials I need to finish by tomorrow morning. But it's about Ryan." "Emily, please," Michael said without taking his eyes off the screen. "That again. We already talked about it. You're worrying too much. Ryan is fine. Besides, I have work to do. Please understand." At those words, I couldn't say anything more. Michael was busy, it's true. Recently, he'd been working even on weekends more often. I felt bad about bothering him with household matters. Going back to my room, I thought alone. Maybe I really was overthinking it. Miss Michelle said there was no problem, and Michael said he was fine. But my mother's intuition kept screaming that something was wrong. As I passed by Ryan's room, I could see my son's sleeping face through the crack in the door. His face, illuminated by moonlight, was definitely thinner. His cheekbones protruded more clearly than before. My chest tightened. But I didn't know what to do. There was no problem at school. The teacher hadn't noticed anything. My husband said not to worry. And yet, my son was definitely changing. The following Monday, the situation got even worse. In the morning, when Ryan was coming down the stairs, he almost missed a step. I rushed over in a panic. "Ryan, are you okay?" "Yeah, I just felt a little dizzy." Dizzy. An 8-year-old child feeling dizzy. My anxiety turned to certainty. Something was definitely wrong. And I had to find out what it was. That day, I decided to take off work. I needed to observe Ryan more carefully. After putting my son on the school bus, I made up my mind. I would go directly to the school and see for myself. But that wasn't necessary. A little after 10 in the morning, my cell phone rang. The screen displayed St. Mary's Elementary School. When I answered, I heard a calm woman's voice. "Is this Mrs. Collins?" "This is the office at St. Mary's Elementary School." "Yes, that's me." "Has something happened?" My heart pounded. Had something happened to Ryan? An injury? Illness? "Ryan is fine." Perhaps sensing my agitation, the woman quickly added that. "However, the principal would like to speak with you. Could you come to the school as soon as possible?" "I'll come right away." Still clutching my cell phone, I grabbed my car keys. My hands were shaking. Even though she said he was fine, being called to the school was not normal. As I drove, various possibilities raced through my mind. Had Ryan caused some problem? Or had he gotten into trouble with someone? No, that couldn't be. Ryan was a kind child. He got along well with his friends. I arrived at the school 20 minutes later. I parked in the lot and hurried to the building. When I gave my name at the office, a young clerk escorted me to the principal's office. When I knocked on the heavy door, a voice from inside said, "Come in." Principal Thompson was a mild-mannered man in his mid-50s. He always greeted parents with a smile at conferences. But today, his expression was more serious than I'd ever seen. "Mrs. Collins, thank you for coming. Please have a seat." As prompted, I sat in the chair in front of the principal's desk. Another woman stood in the corner of the room. She was introduced as the school counselor. "What happened? Is Ryan really okay?" My voice was trembling. Principal Thompson took a deep breath. "There's nothing wrong with Ryan physically. He's resting in the nurse's office now. Mrs. Collins, actually, there's something about your son I need to show you." The principal turned his laptop on the desk toward me. The screen showed a video player with a play button displayed. This is footage from security cameras in the school cafeteria, taken over the past week or two. We didn't notice at first, but yesterday, one of the cafeteria staff pointed out something suspicious. Something suspicious. I stared at the screen. Principal Thompson nodded and reached for the mouse. Please watch. The play button was pressed. The screen showed the school cafeteria. Children were lined up, receiving their lunches. It was an everyday scene. I looked for Ryan. I found him right away. My son in a blue shirt was standing in the lunch line with other children. Holding a tray, he received food in order. Sandwich, fruit, milk. Ryan's tray was filled with food just like the other children's. What's wrong with this? Just as I started to say that, something happened on the screen. As Ryan, having received his lunch, was heading toward a table, a woman approached him. A woman with blonde hair in a ponytail. It was Miss Michelle. The teacher said something to Ryan. There was no audio, so I couldn't tell what she was saying. But Ryan's expression changed. His smile disappeared and he looked down. And the next moment, I couldn't believe my eyes. Miss Michelle took Ryan's tray away from him. What? A voiceless sound escaped my throat. On the screen, Ryan headed to a table with only an empty tray. Miss Michelle, carrying the tray with Ryan's food, disappeared toward the back of the cafeteria. What is? I was glued to the screen. Principal Thompson opened another file. There's footage from other days too. The next video played. It was a different day. Ryan's clothes were different. But the same thing happened. Miss Michelle approached Ryan after he received his lunch. She said something. She took the tray. Ryan sat at the table with nothing. Another day's footage. Then another. Every time, the same pattern repeated. Miss Michelle took Ryan's lunch. My son couldn't eat anything. He sat in front of an empty table, just looking down. My vision blurred. Tears welled up. Why would she do this? My voice shook. Principal Thompson answered with a pained expression. We were shocked too. We tried to call in Miss Harrison to ask about it right away, but she called in sick this morning. Every day this has been happening. I kept staring at the screen. In footage from another day, Ryan was shown talking with friends. While his friend ate a sandwich next to him, Ryan just sat there with nothing. The friend seemed to be asking something. Ryan shook his head. He probably said something like, I'm not hungry. My son hadn't been eating lunch every day. Neither the lunch box I'd packed nor the lunch he received at school, the teacher had taken it all. That's why he'd gotten so thin. That's why he didn't eat breakfast. Dinner was the only meal he could eat in a day. Why didn't he tell me? I covered my face. The tears wouldn't stop. Why had Ryan kept quiet? Why hadn't he asked for help? The counselor spoke to me gently. I think your son was scared. Teachers are authority figures. Especially for young children, what a teacher says is absolute. He probably couldn't disobey. Principal Thompson continued. We spoke with Ryan. Miss Harrison told him this was a secret between just the two of them and he mustn't tell anyone. She threatened him that if he told, something worse would happen. He was threatened. I couldn't believe it. That kind-looking Miss Michelle. The well-regarded, dedicated teacher. Why would she do such a thing? What's the reason? Why my son? At my question, Principal Thompson shook his head with a puzzled expression. That's just it, we don't know either. We can't find any motive for Miss Harrison's actions. Ryan is a good student with no behavioral problems. Why she would do this? On the screen, the footage was still playing. Ryan sat alone at an empty table. Children around him were eating happily. Only my son sat there with nothing, just waiting for time to pass. In that small body, how much hunger had he endured? How painful it must have been. And he couldn't even ask his mother for help. I stood up. Please let me see my son. Of course. I'll take you to the nurse's office. Principal Thompson stood up. At that moment, I noticed another scene in the corner of the screen. In a corner of the cafeteria, Miss Michelle was talking with someone. The moment I saw the profile of that person, my heart almost stopped. A man in a navy suit. I recognized that profile. It was Michael. Why was my husband in Ryan's school cafeteria on a weekday afternoon? Why was he talking so familiarly with Miss Michelle? Mrs. Collins? Principal Thompson's voice sounded far away. I stared at the screen. This had to be some mistake. The wrong person. It had to be. But deep in my heart, I already knew the truth. All the dots were about to connect into one terrible line. Could you rewind the footage? My voice was calm. Strangely calm. It sounded like someone else's voice. Principal Thompson looked a bit surprised but rewound the footage. A corner of the cafeteria. The man talking with Miss Michelle. The image quality wasn't that great, but there was no mistake. That was my husband. Do you know this man? At the principal's question, I nodded slowly. That's my husband. Silence fell over the room. Principal Thompson and the counselor exchanged glances. Mrs. Collins, did your husband have business at the school? No. I shook my head. My husband works in sales. There's no reason for him to come to this school on a weekday afternoon. At least, no reason that I know of. I stared at the two people on the screen. Michael and Michelle. They were talking with smiles. Looking intimate. Like lovers. Everything connected. Michael's increasing overtime. Working on weekends. His attitude of avoiding conversation with me. And Michelle's incomprehensible actions. Please let me see my son. Right now. The hallway to the nurse's office felt unnaturally long. The counselor accompanied me, but I didn't speak. I couldn't. When I opened the door to the nurse's office, Ryan was sitting on the bed. Seeing me, tears welled up in my son's eyes. Mom. I hugged Ryan. His thin body trembled in my arms. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Ryan apologized while crying. You didn't do anything wrong, Ryan. You didn't do anything wrong. I couldn't stop crying either. As I stroked my son's hair, I repeated the same words over and over. The teacher scared me. She said I couldn't tell. She said if I told you, something worse would happen. It's okay now. The teacher can't scare you anymore. Mommy will protect you. I held Ryan for a while. When my son's trembling subsided a little, I asked gently. Ryan, did the teacher give any reason why she took your lunch? Ryan, still gripping my sleeve, answered in a small voice. I'm not really sure. But, the teacher sometimes talked about Dad. My heart froze. About Dad? Yeah. She said Dad was a very important person. But that having me around made things hard for Dad. So I'm in the way. An 8-year-old child had been made to believe he was in the way. That he was in the way of his own father. Anger welled up inside me. I'd never felt this kind of emotion in my life. My body shook. But in front of Ryan, I desperately maintained my composure. That's not true, Ryan. You're not in the way. You're Daddy's treasure. You're Mommy's treasure. I felt pathetic lying. If Ryan were really Michael's treasure, this would never have happened. When I returned to the principal's office, Principal Thompson was waiting with a grave expression. "Mrs. Collins, we've tried to contact Miss Harrison at her home, but there's no answer. We've already reported this to the school board. I think we should contact the police as well." "Please do." I nodded. "And I have one more request. Could I have a copy of that footage?" The principal hesitated a bit but ultimately agreed. While waiting for the footage to be copied to a USB drive, I called Michael on my cell phone. After 3 rings, my husband's voice came through. "Emily. What's wrong?" "I'm at work." "Where are you right now?" "At the office." "Why?" It was a lie. In the background of Michael's voice, I couldn't hear any office noise. "Come home right now." "What happened?" "Is it Ryan?" "I'm bringing Ryan home from school." "You wait at home. We need to talk." I hung up. My hands were shaking. I got home around 2 in the afternoon. I told Ryan to rest in his room upstairs. My son looked anxious but obeyed. Michael's car wasn't in the garage yet. I sat on the sofa and waited, clutching the USB drive. 30 minutes later, I heard the front door open. Michael came in. He was in a suit but looked somehow flustered. "Emily, what's going on?" "Sit down." At my voice, Michael stopped moving. He must have sensed something in my expression. He slowly sat down on the sofa. I opened my laptop and inserted the USB drive. I played the footage. The cafeteria. Ryan. Miss Michelle. My son having his lunch taken away. I could see the color drain from Michael's face. "This is." "There's more." I played the next footage. A corner of the cafeteria. Michelle and Michael. The two talking intimately. Michael couldn't say anything. "How long has it been going on?" My voice was trembling. "Emily, it's not what you think, this is." "How long?" I was shouting. Michael lowered his face. 2 years. 2 years. Since Ryan was 6. Since the time I still believed we were happy. Michelle Harrison has been taking our son's lunch. Every day. 4 weeks. That child couldn't eat anything at school. That's why he was losing weight. Do you understand? Your mistress was starving our son. I didn't mean. I didn't know. I didn't know Michelle was doing that. You didn't know? Really? I stared at Michael. You told me I was worrying too much. That Ryan was fine. But didn't you really know what that woman was doing? No. I really didn't know. Michael desperately denied it, but his eyes were darting around. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Looking at the intercom screen, I saw 2 police officers standing there. Principal Thompson must have arranged it. When I opened the door, an older female officer introduced herself. "Mrs. Collins. We received a call from St. Mary's Elementary School. We'd like to speak with you about a woman named Michelle Harrison." When I invited the officers into the house, Michelle was standing at the entrance. When had she arrived? She stood there, pale-faced. "You're Michelle Harrison, correct?" The officer addressed her. Michelle didn't answer. She just stared at me. Hatred dwelt in those eyes. "Why?" I asked. "Why did you do that to my son?" Michelle let out a dry laugh. "I've been with your husband for 2 years. We love each other. But as long as that child exists, Michael won't be mine. If only the son weren't there, we could be together." She was insane. She was completely insane. She didn't understand how abnormal it was to starve an 8-year-old child. "You're under arrest," the officer said. on suspicion of child abuse. Michelle was taken away. All the while, glaring at me. Michael collapsed to the floor. But I could no longer look at him. 6 months have passed, and Michelle Harrison was convicted of child abuse and abuse of authority. Her teaching license was permanently revoked, and she left the state. She'll never stand at a podium again. Her relationship with Michael became public during the trial. I can't forget the last words she said in court: "I was only in love." Twisted love didn't justify hurting an 8-year-old child. I divorced Michael. The proceedings went through surprisingly quickly. He admitted everything and didn't contest it. I got custody, and Michael was only granted visitation once a month. Still, Ryan doesn't want to see his father. I can't blame him. We moved to a new apartment. There were too many painful memories soaked into our old house. It's a small 2-bedroom apartment, but the window overlooks a park. Ryan transferred to a new school. For the first few weeks, Ryan was afraid to go to school. He couldn't enter the cafeteria. When lunchtime came, my son's hands would shake. But his new homeroom teacher, Mrs. Johnson, was understanding. She knew Ryan's situation and for the first month, ate lunch with him in the classroom. Gradually, my son changed. His smile came back. He made friends. Last week, Ryan said for the first time that he wanted to go to the cafeteria on his own. I almost cried. This morning, Ryan ate 3 pancakes for breakfast. "Mom, this is delicious. Can I have another one?" How happy those words made me. The healthy roundness had returned to my son's cheeks. His weight was steadily increasing. The doctor said he'd made a complete physical recovery. It will take more time for his emotional wounds to heal. But we have time. This weekend, Ryan and I went to the park together. My son played baseball with friends. I sat on a bench and watched. When the ball Ryan hit flew far, my son ran happily. An elderly woman sitting on the next bench smiled and spoke to me. "What a lovely son you have." "Thank you," I answered. "We've been through difficult times, but we're happy now." That was true. Money is tighter than before. I had to increase my part-time hours. But we have peace. We have trust in each other. Ryan came running over. "Mom, did you see? That was a home run." "I saw it. That was amazing." I hugged my son. Ryan hugged me back. "Mom, I love you." "I love you too, Ryan." The sky was clear and blue. In the park, children's laughter echoed. In the distance, a dog barked. It was an ordinary, peaceful afternoon. Family isn't just about blood ties. It's not about titles. Family is about protecting each other, supporting each other, loving each other. The father betrayed his son. A teacher hurt a child because of personal feelings. But a mother's love never wavered. My small family of just Ryan and me. That was enough. There will surely be difficulties ahead. But we can overcome them. Together. A new morning will come again. And on that morning, we can greet it with smiles. That's what matters most. I understand that now.